Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Amy Chai, and today I want to talk to you about something a little bit crazy, and it is bar. How is a dirty bartender causing income in the United States? How is our federal government like a dirty bartender? Hope I got your attention a little bit here. Because what if you go to a bar and you order your favorite drink, and the bartender comes in and he's like behind the bar, he's like sneaking half a cup full of water into your cup before he pours the rest of the drink in? What did the bartender just do? The bartender just diluted your drink, right? He's a dirty bartender. He's ripping you off by diluting your drink. You pay the same amount of money, but you get less. And if you want a full drink, you're going to end up buying 2 drinks. So everything you buy is going to cost more. You're going to pay more and get less. So you lose money because you're not getting what you paid for. And that's what a dirty bartender does. Your money won't go very far and your dollar is worth less. Okay. So how does a dirty bartender cause income inequality in America? What I'm going to tell you right now. Who's our dirty bartender? Well, our dirty bartender is the federal government and the Federal Reserve bankers, the people that control our money and control our spending. And there's something that's called like deficit spending. And that's what happens when we spend more money than we actually have. So, how do we spend all that money that we don't have? Well, a lot of times we do that by simply printing more money that isn't backed up by real anything. Like it's not like backed up by gold in Fort Knox or anything like that. So we just print up more money, right? And so when you're printing this money, it's basically like monopoly money that's going in and mixing up with the real dollars. Just like the water is going into the drink, mixing in with a real drink, but it's water, okay? But this is printed money that isn't backed by anything, and it's being diluting the value of the dollars. So as they print more money, the federal government and then the bankers, what happens is every dollar that you have in your pocket is worth less. Your dollar is not going to go very far. But even though there's a lot more money and money's cheap and plentiful to those who control it, like the politicians and the bankers who control all the money, what doesn't go up? Well, you know what doesn't go up is your paycheck. Your paycheck doesn't go up when they print more money every time they print more money, does it? Your paycheck is staying the same. But goods and services are going to cost more. And not only that, but the goods and services that you produce for your salary are going up, costing more for other people, but you're not getting the benefit of increased wages for that. So they're sucking the money and the productivity out of you, and they're giving it to bankers and politicians for deficit spending. So now your wage does not go up. But what else happens? Well, your debts do not go down. Now, say you took out that mortgage on your house with $100,000 that was actually worth $100,000, right? But now with all this money around, that $100,000 isn't worth as much. So maybe the debt that the bank is holding on your house is really only worth $50,000 to them. But you don't get that discount. You don't see that discount. You still have to pay the full $100,000. But then what happens? Because your money isn't going as far on your groceries, and your money isn't going as far on your kids' school clothes, and your money isn't going as far on the electric bill and the gas bill. You might have trouble paying that $100,000 mortgage. And what happens is you might get behind on a payment. And then the bankers, they can swoop right in using their piles and piles of cheap and plentiful dollar bills. They can buy that house right out from under you. And for them, it's really a steal because they're getting it for a discount. They're getting it for $100,000, which is worth less to them than it would have been last year before they started printing the money. So the bankers see more and more wealth, that they're sucking this wealth, out of your cup, out of your proverbial cup that should have had a nice cocktail in it, but really it's diluted with water. They're stealing money from you, they're stealing productivity from you, and everything is costing more for you, but yet you're not getting paid more, and your debts are not being decreased according to the decrease in the value of your debt to the banks. So as you can see, when money is cheap and plentiful, it's really good for bankers and it's really good for politicians too, because they diluted everything and they got a steal. They stole your house, they stole your money. And all they had to do was fire up the printing press and print more money and dilute the values of the dollar. So that dirty bartender trick is how money and wealth is stolen from the poor and given to the rich. And the dirtiest bartender is the government when they overspend what we have. And the government has no incentive to stop doing this because the bankers are their friends. And guess who else makes money from this? The government officials make money from this too. So who gets the money? Who gets the money when they print out all these extra dollars? Well, one recent example, of course, is the Ukraine war, where they spent, a couple $100 billion on, weapons, and those weapons basically come back to big business in the United States. So these big international companies are making more money from the money that's being printed and basically stolen out of your pockets. And then the debt for which is going to be given to your children and grandchildren. Okay. And that's for someone else's war, but someone's profiting from it and it's not you. The other people that profit from it is landlords. Now, let's say there's 10 or 20 million illegal migrants in the country. And let's say that America decides to give them all homes and give them all health care and everything like that. Well, if you are a landlord, you can charge the government whatever you want for and have 100% guaranteed housing that's filled with guaranteed clients paid for by the government. Nobody's ever going to miss a payment. All those housing slots, they're filled up. That makes it harder for poor people to afford places to live. And it gives money from you to the landlords. So there's a lot of pressure for landlords to keep this gravy train of paying for illegals going, because it's transferring money from you. It's not actually transferring it to the illegal aliens. No, it's actually transferring it to people such as landlords and, yes, like medical care and all the people who benefit from having a lot of money from the government that is supposed to go, quote unquote, to illegals. And a lot of that would be like nonprofits and landlords and things like that. What about when the government spends money that we don't have to help poor people? Well, isn't that good? They fire up that printing press. At least we're printing money for poor people. Well, actually, that doesn't really go for the poor people either. You know who it goes to? It goes to like no bid contracts and cronies. Say you have a contractor and they're going to build housing for underprivileged people who are homeless. And then the cost goes up and up and up, and they don't end up building a lot of houses. And this contractor is getting rich. It goes to cronies that have the contracts with the government. It also goes to nonprofits who get big salaries for like handing out canned food to people who are hungry. Like there was a woman making a couple $100,000 for running like a food bank. $200,000 a year, I think it was, for running a food bank. And it's like all she's doing is letting people come in and take food off of the food pantry. But most of the money is going to the salary of the people at the nonprofit. So what this does is it makes money less available for poor people. It makes money more available for politicians, their cronies, and bankers. And it makes the middle class suffer because they can barely afford to hang on to their wealth and to the value of their dollar that they worked so hard for. And then after all the spending is done and all the money's been diluted, the debt goes back to, guess who? You're right, the taxpayer. So then you have to pay for it twice. And the bartender has created income inequality in America by stealing from the poor and giving to the rich. And that's why, no matter what it is that you think the government should be spending money on, what you're actually doing, if we don't have the money, what you're actually doing is that you're actually supporting a dirty bartender, watering down the money and stealing money from the poor and giving it to the people who always benefit, which is the people at the top. So that's why I oppose deficit spending. It's not because I don't want to give money to poor people. It's because it's a very bad effect on everyone in America except for the people at the top. And it creates more problems than it solves by creating worse housing instability and worse income inequality. So just so you know, next time you're thinking of asking for another government program, you're going to want to think twice. So that's what I have to say today. And next time I'm going to talk a little bit about tariffs. So see you then.